Hey, welcome to Fan Zone Live. We're a little short-handed today. CWise had some family issues to take care of tonight, and Zach's gonna be taking a couple weeks off to kind of get his head reset. But man, I'm thrilled to be here today with Anthony Carter of Arena Insider. Anthony, man, you've been knocking it out of the park this last couple of weeks with your interviews, man. Some of the best coverage out there right now.
Thank you, Scott. Great to be here. I really do appreciate it. And y'all have been doing your thing as well. A lot of people have been chiming in and adding to the coverage. So it's been a full on effort from everyone too.
So yeah, I mean, there's only a few pieces of journalism that I say are kind of like essential reading or watching or taking in when it comes to arena football. One of them being I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's an article on it's Our Sports Central, the white hats and black hats, and who really killed the AFL in 2008. If you
Oh,
haven't seen it, I'll have to send you a
no.
link. It's an amazing article. Breaks it down team by team, who was ultimately responsible for killing the league back in 2008. To me, that's always been one of the essential readings. And then your interview with Titus last week, 2 weeks ago, absolutely. I mean, it changed everything. It's why we're here today, following the AFL podcast that just happened with the new commissioner. Um, I honestly believe it's a big reason why that happened. Why we're here today talking about this stuff is because of that interview and getting that information out publicly.
Yeah, it was good. Do appreciate Stephen Tice for um, pr- agreeing to do the interview with me because I reached out several. Of course, everyone has reached out several times to the league for answers. Nothing. Nobody's gotten back. Of course, reached out to other owners, and some were understandably hesitant as well. They didn't, a lot was going on, but I didn't expect Titus to go the route that he did. And when I realized he started slamming the league and going at the transparency and the pay and the conditions, I just let him go. And I said, this has to be out there. Right. I think him saying that really put a stain on the league. And I think that was something that was made clear by Chris in tonight's interview, and he essentially said we had to step in. We didn't want to keep taking a step back. It was time to make a change.
Yeah, and I think that was exactly it. It wasn't that Steve Titus is being cruel or being unreasonable. He was just being honest. It
Yeah,
was just pure honesty with him. It was incredible.
yeah, and you could tell the frustration. He was fed up. I think at some point it just gets to you got to speak up when you start to notice something's wrong. And I think he did that, and I think he did that with full intention because I think he knew where that was going to go, and I think he wanted that to be heard. And clearly, there's been talks for some time now to move Hutton out in for Jeff Fisher, and it started to see that resonate around the league. A lot of people were pushing the same for Jeff Fisher. So once I saw that start picking up, I knew it was only a matter of time that Jeff would be appointed as commissioner,
Well, and
interim
and
commissioner, I should say.
and well, yeah, and the thing everybody talks about, yes, he was very directly calling for Hutton to be gone, very directly calling for certain changes. But the thing that stuck out, I think, to me, probably more than anything, was how uh, the way he explained that there was a solid business plan placed in front of him. It was a legitimately good business plan. Everybody's saying, "Oh, there's no way this would work. There's no way this would work." Titus is a very good businessman in himself, and he looked at what was presented in front of him and said, "This is solid. This is legitimate. This will work." You know, so ultimately, whether it could have worked and just didn't because of mismanagement, or if it was all bogus to begin with, we'll probably never really know that answer. But
Mhm.
that's the thing that probably struck me the most is there was a very legitimate, lined out business plan. It's not like these guys just jumped into bed with these guys because, oh, this sounds fun.
I mean, yes, 16 teams, and including most of them from a merger. So
Hmm.
clearly, all of these players, or excuse me, owners, knew something. And I think there were some other cities and states that were announced very early on, like
Hmm.
that. didn't necessarily sign on. But I do know Arizona. I think that's the one team I know that is expected to sign on next year.
Yeah. I mean, they're already promoting the AFL on their
Right.
Facebook page. Their
Exactly.
cover photo has the AFL logo on it, so
Right.
they're clearly intending on being with this league next year. So it's good to
Yeah.
see, even with all the instability, that these teams still really do want in. I'm hearing a lot of talk of, the league's dying, league's dying. They just need to find somewhere else to go. They all need to go to the NAL. They all need to go to the IFL. Uh, the Albany owners straight up said the other day, we have no interest in playing in the IFL. We want to play arena ball. We don't want to play indoor ball. And he
Right.
said the NAL is struggling as much, if not worse, than the AFL right now. So
Mhm.
it's not a better situation to jump ship and go into the NAL.
Yeah, and
So,
AFL just historically has just been the premier arena football franchise, and every team wants to, like, I remember the Albany Empire, so
mm-hmm,
there's other teams, and you still see a lot of those teams that used to be in the AFL still hanging around in other leagues, Arizona Rattlers, who
mm-hmm.
were like the Patriots of the AFL is what I always say.
In many
Jacksonville
ways.
Sharks still around. Yeah, oh my goodness,
In
exactly.
many ways, they're the
Especially
Patriots.
especially being in Philadelphia, I can assure you it's that rivalry will never go away. So you got a
Not
lot
after
of
that
those
last
teams.
Arena Bowl, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. And speaking of, I know we're getting off topic a little
Oh,
bit.
no, we're
That
good.
Arena
This, you know
Bowl when
what? The
I
league is a
attended,
topic.
yeah,
So,
exactly. When I attended that Arena Bowl, when the Soul finally beat the Rattlers, you could just tell the excitement. And Clint Dozell, shout out to Clint Dozell,
mhm.
great coach, great guy to talk to. You can just
Oh
tell
yeah,
he
love
was
Clint.
like very that because there was some type of heated rivalry between him and the Rattlers coach, whose name I can't think of right now.
Kevin Guy.
Um, Kevin Guy, yeah, there was
Kevin
there was
Guy.
some
Yeah.
tension there. You can tell.
Oh
So,
yeah. I don't know. Were you there?
yeah,
Were you there the evening of the award show? Were you? Did you make
I
that
had
night?
that was the one in Philly.
Yeah. No, the one in
I
Arizona.
Oh, not the one in Arizona. They had one at the
Okay.
Wells Fargo Center, that I
No,
didn't
that
go, but I had a
last
reporter going
that
to.
yeah, they came in. I don't want to get too specifics, but the Soul came into that award show that night. Every one of the guys were just livid. Like, I've never seen these guys so mad before.
Yeah.
They found, let's just say they caught the Rattlers doing some very Patriots like things at their practice earlier that day, and
Oh boy.
it didn't go over well with the Soul that night.
What
Um,
kind of Patriots thing? Are we're not
uh,
talking about Spygate, are we, or Deflategate?
maybe something a little
Oh boy.
similar to that.
All right. I'll let you tell that story. I don't know nothing about
So,
that.
coincidentally enough, that's when the Rattlers decided to jump ship and go to the IFL. Kind of
Gotcha.
right after a punishment might have been coming their way. But yeah, that's just
Yeah.
speculation on my part. I don't want to.
Didn't know
But
that.
yes,
Nope.
those Soul players were not happy when they came into there. They were said we should just not even play the game. They should just give us a title.
Mm.
So, but anyway, so yeah, we are definitely getting off track here. But that's kind of the thing, though. It's the Shield. It's the Arena Football League. You talk to anybody, especially new franchises in these other leagues. They always say, "Hey, there's a new Arena Football team in town." All the news companies say, "Hey, there's a new Arena Football team in town." They don't say, "Hey, there's a new indoor football team in town." Arena
Right.
Football League carries weight. The Shield carries weight. We talk about Shield on this show all the time. The Shield means something, and
Hmm.
and it means more, than the NAL. The NAL has been a good product, but when it comes down to it, which one's more
Right.
recognizable? And that's
And
what
you
branding's about.
hmm And I was just going to add in with the Philadelphia Soul, with them not being at the Wells Fargo Center this year. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's a big deal. It may not many people outside of Philly may not realize that, but being in Wells Fargo, that was the whole point. And I think a lot of that had to do with Jaws maybe not being owner because Jaws is that celebrity pool.
Mhm.
Bon Jovi hasn't been involved for decades
Long
now,
time.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but he's the reason behind the logo and all of that. But
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, when the Soul announced that they weren't going to be in Philly, I was like, okay, we'll just see that out. And Trenton's not too far, but it's not. I don't know
Yeah.
how that audience will look. So it's
No, and
just
the Soul has played games in Trenton before. It's not like the first time
right.
they've ever played there.
Hmm.
It's not the ideal situation, but it worked. It should have worked anyway, I should say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, having only 3 home games in Trenton, as Mikey Lou's saying
Yeah,
here,
Mike Will. Hmm.
yeah, that's yeah, it's not ideal, but it's
No.
also not.
It,
I mean, I don't know. My tolerance for that kind of stuff is pretty minimal. I live in Kansas City. I had season tickets to Iowa Barnstormers. I traveled 3 hours each way. I was fully prepared to go 2.5 hours to Council Bluffs for all these games here. Now I'm going to be going 2.5 hours to Salina. So I've got I've got little sympathy for a 45-minute drive.
sure.
So
Sure. Yeah. And the Soul, they there was one year they were in forget what it was called. It just slipped my mind. Oh, they were
they
in
played in
like
a couple different
Allentown. They were
arenas.
like in the
Hmm.
Allentown area, but that was just for like a game. So I was glad they at least weren't going there because I did not want to travel all that far for
Yeah, they've played in a couple different venues over the years.
Atlantic
It's
City. That was a fun one.
hmm which man, the Atlantic City venue is gorgeous, but
Hmm.
that's a whole another deal there. But
Yeah.
so you just got done like I did watching the AFL podcast.
Hmm.
Um, what'd you think? What's your takeaway from all that?
That was I'm glad. That was for the first time and I don't know how long that was full transparency. That's all everyone has been asking for. What is going on? And what is going on with the stream? They answered that. What happened in the league office? G6 as far as the trademarks, they answered that. A lot of people were speculating about that. They answered that. Fisher was also just honest saying that, we're going to build from ground up again, essentially, is what he was saying,
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing. But essentially, they're saying we're just clean house and we're going to get this thing right. We're going to build the structure again. And sure, there was a lot of teams that folded clearly because they didn't have, structure compared to the other teams that are still around. But it sounds like they are going to take that new approach into building that back up. And they're just working with the teams now that can stay put the next couple of weeks or so. So yeah, I like the podcast. I thought it was great answers. I know there was a lot they probably couldn't say at the moment, but
It's probably a lot they're
it
still
was
figuring out.
sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like rebuilding from the previous administration. So I think
Mhm.
yeah, it was. I think they answered a lot of the unanswered questions that we've been looking for. What did you think of it?
Same thing. I mean, I trying to kind of compare and contrast with the talks with Hutton. Because we interviewed him once on the Rampage Coaches show. Um, Hutton had a lot of style, a lot of good stories about growing up and what his mom told him and this and that. But there wasn't a lot of substance to it. There's we'd like to do all these pie in the sky things, but there wasn't a lot of execution behind it. Um, the feeling I got from Fisher was, this is what we're shooting to do. It may not be pretty. We're going to straight up tell you right now, it may not be pretty the entire time, but we're going to make it work one way or another. We're committed to the product. And just getting back to the roots, we're not going to try to do, VR sideline seats. We're not going to go international starting week one. We're not going to just down to earth. This is what we need. We need to get streaming. We need to get quality games. We need to get consistent. Ultimately, that's all we all want. The rest of the stuff's great. This is what we want.
Right. And quick question, and because you've talked to him and I haven't, does Hutton have a football background? I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
Uh, not from what I understand anyway, not quite the background that definitely like Fisher, but
Okay.
really anybody that's been involved with this league in the past has. It's pretty minimal.
Okay.
So
Because that's I bring that up because I think that's the big difference there too, right?
mhm,
Fisher has that background. And speaking with Titus about it when he was advocating for Fisher, I think Titus brought up a good point where they believe that Fisher could bring NFL Network back potentially, right?
mhm,
And that's huge, right? Talking about streaming, talking about revenue money, and also essentially getting these players on a platform to go to the next level. Um, to get on a national stage so they can get scouted and all of that. So
mhm,
Fisher, I'm sure he has those contacts, maybe not with the NFL, other owners, other coaches. So I think that's a big deal, and I think that's why a lot of people also push for Fisher because of his connects. And like you said, I agree with how it seemed like he was just straight up and honest. And I think that was an emphasis, and I think that was
Hmm.
just something that was from seeing all of the comments on social media, all of my talks with players and coaches and owners. It feels like that was the part that was lagging from Hutton, and they automatically feel
Hmm.
that there's a better transparency from Fisher.
Fisher doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's he's going to just tell you how it is. If it sucks, he's going to tell you it sucks. If it's, he's not going to fluff things up. He's not going to spin things. He's a football coach. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be. So I like. Is he going to be the guy that's going to get this league to be the fourth major? Probably not. But is he going to get the league to a place where it can be stable and get the exposure it needs? I've got full confidence in that. The guy knows people, knows what the right things to do.
Yeah. And I'm not, yeah, I don't think, at least from what I'm seeing, I'm not sure if he's going to want to stay as commissioner. I think he's just someone that wants to step in now and save the season before it completely collapses. So I think that was a push for him.
Well, and that's just it. So we've cut back officially. We've cut back 6 teams. We're down to 10. I did read earlier that it may go down to 8. That there's still 2 that are on the fence. That I think it's still part of their evaluation process. But whether it's 8 or 10, those 8 or 10 are going to be okay. You know,
Mhm.
with a comment in here, I'd rather the AFL. I'd rather be the AFL right now with 10 teams than the NAL with 5 of 8 teams. And it's true. I mean, the NAL has dropped teams like flies all season, and so has the AFL. If I hope I
Mhm.
said that right. Um,
What about, you mean IFO or
it's the
or
NAL. So the
IFO?
NAL, drop teams preseason. No, IFL stable. That's what they've been
Okay.
doing. They
I
haven't
don't know
lost.
much
They have
about
a
IFO, but
Yeah.
okay.
IFL hasn't lost a team during the season since 2021. Now that wasn't that long ago, but still, 3 years is pretty solid in indoor football to not be dropping teams. But yeah, so NAL's been dropping teams during the season, preseason. They're down to kind of a skeleton crew. AFL still has at least 8, if not 10, solid teams. I mean, that's no joke. That's what everybody was saying that they need to start with to begin with. It was
Right.
like, oh, 16 is too many. They should start with 8. They should start with 10. I don't know how many times I've seen that comment.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I thought
there's soft
16 right
reboot.
off the gate was, I was like, oh boy, the amount, I don't know how long it took me to add each one of those teams to the website and the schedules and the
Mm-hmm.
updating. And yeah, so I still have to go through and edit a lot of those teams that,
It would have
but
been ambitious if the leadership knew what they were doing. It
mhm,
would have been ambitious if everybody in place, let's say they brought Jerry Kurz back and brought all the guys that have done this 100% before. 16
mhm.
teams would have been ambitious for them coming from the ground up. With guys that had no clue what they were doing, things were going to fail. There's certain things were going to fail.
And speaking of Kurz, I was having this conversation, not necessarily about Kurz, but as far as past leadership, I was having this conversation with someone about it. And my theory as to why they came back with 16 teams is I think they wanted to show or make a point that we're not like the previous leadership. We're coming back. We've been out for, was it 5 years, 2019? So we've been
Mm-hmm.
out for this long. We're coming back and we're coming back strong. We're going to make it a point that the AFL is here to be around for years to come. So I think that's why they wanted to be a strong 16 teams. But one of my red flags that I noticed with Oregon, uh, they posted on their Facebook, I think this is like a week before games, looking for sponsors still. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have sponsors? That's like the core of your team, I feel like. So, and there was a
Well,
lot of teams that were like that too.
looking at Minnesota, you looked at their field and their walls. Their walls are blank. They didn't have sponsors. And she can claim sabotage or whatever she wants, but there's no excuse to not have any sponsors on your walls. I
Yeah.
mean, there are black walls all the way around. Like that's fine. If you want to say somebody's sabotaging you on the league level at the high end, I don't believe you, but okay, fine. But there's no reason you can't be hitting the streets. getting those sponsors and making your team as stable as you can. I brought Salina up on this show before. You look at Salina, not only are every one of their walls covered in ads, but they got a second row in front of their first row seats covered in ads. So they essentially have two
Right.
walls worth of ads in that building. That's where these teams make their money.
Yep.
That's why Salina is still here. That's why Salina is still stable.
And,
They're
and
doing it right.
and when that's shown on TV, even more money.
Mm-hmm.
When
Exactly.
so that's why when you don't have those TV deals, that's a huge deal. That's a huge missed opportunity. I'm looking at one of the comments, and I agree with Mikey Lou about don't need the AFL to be major, just stable. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Making
Yeah.
decent money. That's essentially, yeah, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we don't need it to be 32 teams or all of
Mm-hmm.
that, all over the place. If players are getting paid, coaches getting paid, everyone's happy, all of that, and you can stick around. And then once you build that core, then you can maybe add some more teams once you start getting in a
Right.
groove and get more attention.
Now, if for some reason, let's say that the perfect storm happened, the Rattlers were coming over and the Sharks were coming over, and all the heavy hitters from all the leagues got together to create this AFL in the first year. All right, you can do 16 teams, but you're coming in with a lot of established teams. You look at some of the teams they've cut: Philadelphia, Louisiana, Georgia, uh, uh, Oregon. Who are the other ones? Oh, Madison.
Oh, I got it up on my screen.
Minnesota. Yeah,
Iowa.
Minnesota. And then Iowa canceled themselves as a whole. That's kind of a separate issue. But you look at all teams. Every one of those 6 teams were first year teams. They didn't have
Mhm.
anything established, nothing behind them. You know, the other big criticism the AFL's been taking is all these CIF teams that they brought in. How do they bring in all these low level CIF teams? Well, guess what? The CIF teams are still here. You know, every one of the CIF teams are still in this league right now.
Yeah.
So it's about coming in with being established. Yeah, some of these guys had to get net. Some of these guys had to update their fields. In terms of Wichita, they didn't update their field. They've got a very old field that they're playing on. But they
Mhm.
had the gear, they had the equipment, they had the ability to make this happen.
Right.
So yeah, it was too ambitious. I appreciate the effort, but if you're not going to enforce things at the league level, it's going to fail.
Yep.
And that's kind of what they ran into.
And I always mention, you lose trust from the fans. I mean, the fans also
Mm-hmm.
make up the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have teams come back, then fold, then come back, then fold. As a fan, why am I going to trust that this team? Why am I going to spend season tickets if I don't even know? Why show up? I'm showing up to an arena and I'm told that they're not going to play. And
Right.
I'm referencing the Rapid City Marshals, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand the situation around that. But that's an example where it's like fans are like, okay, well, why should I support if I got other things to do?
Well, and same thing going into Louisiana and seeing the nets all crooked and dangling with the ratchet strap as your crossbar. I mean, come on. Same thing in Oregon, going and seeing the cattle guards as walls. It's just not, that's not appropriate. That's not professional. It's kind of what Coach James was talking about on here last week was there's a certain standard. We do have to live up to a certain standard. You know,
Hmm.
bad streaming broadcasts are one thing. It's frustrating for the people trying to watch it, but the overall facility needs to be safe, needs to be appropriate,
Right.
and they weren't.
Yeah.
It
Oregon
just
seemed
wasn't
very
in a lot of
rushed.
places. So, oh yeah, Oregon was very rushed, and they said they had the walls in stock. They said they had the nets in the building, but they had the wrong walls for their building, and the nets they had they couldn't put up in their building. Which I can deal with the bad nets, but I can't deal with the cattle guard walls.
No.
That,
And
that's dangerous.
and for people who don't know, I used to be a reporter in Oregon, in Southern Oregon, so Medford. So Salem was probably a good maybe 2 3 hours. I would say more 3 hours. There's nothing in Medford. There's nothing but fairgrounds. Like
Mm-hmm.
country singers and Nelly performed in Medford at a fairground, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw in Salem that there was going to be a team at a fairground, I was like, first of all, I didn't know Salem had an arena. Second, at a fairground, what? Why not Portland at the Moda Center, where the Trailblazers
Mhm.
play. So it's like, then that just seems like something that was, I don't know, it wasn't truly thought out clearly.
You're talking about a bigger expense for one. You're also talking about a history now with and actually what turns out to be a very similar situation to what's happened to the AFL now, with the Steel versus the Thunder. The
Hmm.
Thunder
Yep.
owner
Forgot
wasn't
about that.
committing. Yeah, he wasn't committing, kind of dragging on the team league was ready to put out the schedule. It was ready to go, but their owner wouldn't commit because he was trying to work out another deal on the side. Well, he left the country to go on vacation. This team called the arena, took the dates out from underneath him, and created the Steel. It's kind of similar to what we're looking at here. Is the league said, "Hey, Hutton doesn't have the rights to the name, so to bring up Futurama, we're gonna make our own AFL with blackjack and hookers." They're just doing it doing it themselves.
You
And
took me
more power
back
to
with
them.
that one to pull out them. Wow.
Hmm. And yeah, so the league just basically took the franchise out from underneath them, and the same thing here in this case, the owners took the league out from underneath the commissioner. They didn't have the
Yep.
power to oust him, so they just created their own league.
That's
So I mean,
yeah.
more power to them. So
And
how?
speaking of, think about but sorry, but what did you think about what he mentioned regarding the trademarks and the trying to that agreement?
Honestly, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant, brilliant move. That if Lee was already in breach of contract with the league, with the league rights, that means they're available. So why not? Why not just do it yourself? I mean, they're pretty much having to do it themselves anyway. As soon as they had to come up with their own broadcast situations in 2 days for week one, the teams are already running the league. So
Mhm.
yeah, may as well just take it on, put Fisher in charge, and just get us the stability we need.
I'm just shocked it was allowed to go this far. He said what, 15 months that they couldn't get anything signed, like that was.
I, I would say shocked, but at the same time, if you look at what else has happened this year, it's it makes sense because that's essentially what the owners have run into this year. Um, the question here. So the other AFL is who owns the other AFL? Yeah. So the G6 ownership group, they own the rights. That came out a couple weeks ago in social media that this G6 company owned the rights to the AFL. Um, Basically, they never got a contract set up, and help me if I'm paraphrasing this wrong. They never got a contract set up and agreed to and signed and money changing hands, but they kind of still went along with the handshake deal. Well, the owners knew it wasn't official, so they just got the rights out from underneath Hutton and continued the AFL on their own.
Yeah, when a couple of weeks ago, I was just doing some like research and I noticed the trademark was trademarked to G6,
Mm-hmm.
but then I also noticed another application that was submitted by Lee Hutton. His name is on that. If you look on the trademark website, it was
Mm-hmm.
submitted by Lee Hutton, and it was submitted in November, and it
Mm-hmm.
still says pending, so it wasn't even registered to like the trademark office hasn't even assigned somebody to examine it.
Right.
So I thought that was strange. I didn't say anything on it because I'm like, I don't know the legalities about it, and
And yeah,
clearly
I'm
we
no
know
I'm no
now.
trademark lawyer, so
No, I was like, I'm just gonna leave it alone, but I'm keeping my eye on it though.
hmm but yeah, I mean, and as they explained tonight, they didn't want to kind of tarnish the name. They didn't want to come out there and essentially crap on the league. So they just kind of sat back and sat back and sat back, and they watched things go downhill further and further and further and further. And then this opportunity presented itself. So it's just nice to see a light at the end of the tunnel and know that it's probably not a train this time. You
For
know,
sure.
because
Hmm.
man, I'm getting tired of getting run over by that train.
Right. Now, I
So
wonder what the next question, and we don't have to look at this now,
mhm.
but at some point we do. Arena Football Management, that's Hutton owns that. So does he still have legal ties to that? I wonder how that works. I'm sure all that's being discussed behind the scenes. I'm sure there's more to that we just. Don't know right now,
There's a
but
lot to a
it's
lot of
fun to
this we
see
don't
it.
know.
Yeah,
We do know that the league is going back to the AFL.com.
mhm.
So arenafootballusa.com is no longer the official site of the league. Um, and here's so Huddins says he still says the league is still his. I'm sure he does. Um, yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm sure
Technically,
he is saying that. I mean, but
technically, but
I mean, it's to me, it's from what I've gathered, and again, I'm far from a trademark lawyer. It sounds more like he was squatting than anything. You know,
yeah.
he was squatting on this house, and the owners went ahead and sold the house to somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
yeah,
it's it's concerning, it really is concerning. We have it wasn't even just one player that was saying they weren't getting paid. It was multiple players, owners. I think we mentioned earlier Stephen Titus. I think his comment certainly, was sounded the alarm, but I think the other one was Iowa Rampage. Iowa was just open about all of that in that full press release. So I think that was the other thing
well, and
to
that's also why I say
highlight.
Iowa's kind of a little bit different when it comes to the six that aren't with the league anymore.
Mhm.
Yes, everything that was said in that letter that was posted is true. The league did not do X, Y, and Z just like that letter said. There were also things that the Iowa owner was responsible for that he didn't take care of.
Right.
So there's in that situation, and I'm assuming some of these others, there's plenty of blame to be thrown around. No
Sure.
one's going to come out and say, "Hey, I screwed all this up," but look what the league did. So you're going to put out a press release like that. It's going to be, "Hey, look what the league did. This is why we're here." You're not going to point out
Right.
your own flaws. That's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to that stuff.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so it was definitely a double-edged sword in Iowa. Players weren't getting certain kinds of treatments that they needed. They weren't getting the right kind of meals. There was one of the players' wives was cooking all the meals for the teams, and they weren't getting the meal vouchers or being able to go any place to get stuff. It was all put on her to cook everything. That's yeah. So there was definitely more than just the league at fault in Iowa for sure.
Right. And I'm hoping I asked the question in the
Mhm.
live and I didn't think they would get to it, but I just threw it out there anyway. But I'm hoping at some point the league can address the player pay because that's
Yeah.
still a concern. The teams that left, like Georgia, shouldn't have to set up a GoFundMe
No.
to get players home. Like you can't ignore that. So I do hope this new league will address that at some point.
And it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to have a GoFundMe. It's embarrassing for me, to be supporting this league and to have to donate to GoFundMe. I mean, I was happy to help these guys out, but
That's
man,
your responsibility also.
no, it's not my responsibility. But I'm trying to promote this league, trying to make this work. Trying to put out something that's not just look how they screwed up again. And unfortunately, that's kind of what this show's been the last 3 weeks because that's been the big topic lately. Um,
And adding on to that, I'm glad you brought that up because I got a lot of phone calls and messages saying that they think I was trying to tarnish the league with my interviews and articles. And truthfully, going into the season, I didn't expect all this. I don't think anyone did, right? I was
oh
excited
no.
to promote the league just like everyone else. But when I saw what was going on with Philadelphia and
Hmm.
how there was no response to it, I just said, hey, sorry, this has to be put on hold. We're just going to cover this. I'd also didn't expect other teams to follow suit dealing with the same issues. So it was just one of those things where, just had, story after story after story. And sometimes you got to tell it and you see the change that it made. So that's
Well,
sometimes you
and
have to.
that's what I appreciate about what the stuff you've put out is it hasn't just been let's put out a negative article about the league just to get clicks.
No,
You're putting
not at
out
all.
factual, hey, this is my experience as a player, this is my experience as a coach, this is my experience as an owner. Very, you can't argue those.
No.
you know
And
so
yep.
I definitely appreciate that coverage because you know what, it's not always going to be roses. There's going to
Yep.
be some things that are going to happen, and Like I said, I try to keep a positive spin on the league. I want the league to survive. Talking about the Shield, I believe in the Shield. I truly
Hmm.
do.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
don't want these guys taken advantage of. I don't want
No.
them playing in dangerous buildings. I don't want that kind of stuff to be happening. I mean, we're making that step. We're making that step by getting rid of moving out from underneath bad leadership into hopefully what's going to be great leadership.
Correct. And we'll
So,
we'll see what happens. I think I talked to Steven Titus um recently in a interview. I posted a clip on Arena Insider, but I'm going to use the whole interview at a later date. But he was essentially saying that he thinks that the 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 all the bad stuff is past them. So he's saying that there's good things ahead. So hopefully we can get back to what's going on. Yeah, I mean, there's still some lingering, questions. Not, everything's not fully cleared, but hopefully we can get back to reporting on the game recaps and those player profile interviews and all of that.
that's all I've been wanting to do is break down some of these games, and it just hasn't been able to happen.
Yeah, yeah. We
you
don't
know,
know
and
stats. We don't know scores. Schedules changed
well,
the day
that's just
before.
it.
So
Even
like,
even last week, we had 4 games scheduled. Only 3 of them happened, and only one of them was broadcast.
yeah.
Like,
How can you do a
man,
recap on that? Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of,
And
I
one
did
of the
actually.
teams were, yeah,
Go ahead.
West Texas were granted an injunction to play like a day before, two
Mm-hmm.
days before.
Which I've seen a lot of speculation as to why they paid off the NAL to get back play. I think it's just they wanted to play. I don't think it's done for any reason. I don't think they want to get back into the NAL, and that's why they paid them off. Because the reality is, the NAL is not in any kind of shape that if they didn't pay them, and West Texas says, "Hey, we want back next year," the NAL is going to take them. They're going to take any breathing body they can next year. I mean,
Hmm.
that's they've got 3 good teams in that league.
Right.
You know, the rest is hung on by by shoestrings. So they're going to take a good franchise like that, whether they paid them off or not.
Hmm.
That's just how that's going to be. But out of those games last week, there was really, honestly, 2 pretty good upsets. I thought you got Salina coming into Nashville and beating them by 20, and then you've got Wichita topping the Storm in a comeback. Like,
Yeah, yeah. That
that's some
Wichita one
exciting
was
ball.
surprising. Hmm.
That's some exciting ball. That's the kind of stuff I've been
Yeah.
wanting to get into all year. I mean, Salina's got a good team. Did I think they'd drop
Yeah.
50 on Nashville and beat them by 20? No, no, I didn't expect that. You know, I thought it'd be a close game, but I thought Nashville would come out on top. And Wichita versus
Yeah.
Southwest Kansas, didn't see that coming at all. Like, I'm very impressed by both of those essentially CIF teams. Wichita wasn't CIF last year, but they were planning to be
I
this
think
year.
Southwest Kansas. I think Southwest Kansas is going to be a sleeper team. I think
Oh yeah,
as season goes on, I think they're a team to watch for sure.
the quarterback that Salina picked up is going to make that a little bit more difficult for the Storm.
Hmm.
Um, but the Storm's got some big boys on that team, and I've been saying that all year. It's a matter of how quickly can they learn this game. So was it
Sure.
helpful to them that they were playing another? I hate to say this, but essentially an indoor team in Wichita. Maybe that made a difference. But again, Wichita came out on top. You know, so
Right.
that's the beauty of this game, though. That's absolutely the beauty of this game. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that Salina game, Salina up on Nashville 20 points. Wow. I mean, that's something else. West Texas coming into Washington. Yeah, honestly, I'm actually surprised they only scored 34. Like, that was kind of kind of surprised there.
Sure.
And then Rapid City, man, I can't be upset at those players. I mean, you haven't gotten paid. You've been promised $1,000 a week. Yeah, you got to sit out. You got to make it known. You got to make your point known. And it's unfortunate that it had to come to that. But again, that may be one of those turning points for this league. That, hey, now we got players not coming out to play. We've got to get this
Yeah.
fixed now.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I know I'm in the middle of how it went
Mhm.
down, but I think I kind of understand. I think from the building side of things, I've seen people on social media said y'all should at least form. I think there was some players that came out said they could at least told us beforehand so we didn't have
Mhm.
to drive out. So I get that, but I think Rapid City really wanted to make a statement. I think it was
Yeah.
just that's part of me where it's like I get why it wouldn't have had the same impact if they tipped them beforehand. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, the only way that really works is if everyone is in the building. Fans, players, officials, everybody, and then it doesn't happen. I mean, that's how you send that message. If you tell them ahead of time, going, guys, we're not going to come out, so don't even bother sending anybody. Then they get to cancel the game ahead of time. They get to cancel the officials. The buses don't have to show up. It doesn't
It
have the
wouldn't happen.
impact.
Right.
So,
Exactly. That's what I
it.
think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm glad they didn't just pull, 8 guys off out of the stands and try to try to make it happen. Just, I
Sure.
mean, we have actually
Play a,
seen that
play a
happen
little
before. So,
scrimmage.
yeah. So,
Dallas Falcons.
yeah. I mean, so I'm glad that they didn't go that route, but it had to be done. Ultimately, that's what
Yep.
it just had to be done.
Now they're still Rapid City is still they're part of the 10 teams. So
Mhm.
I think this weekend are they have playing a game this weekend or I know there's a lot of
That
schedule changes. I haven't caught up with anything.
that's a very good question because they had a game announced and then
Or was something just
saw
posted?
the
Who
game was
posted that it was
canceled.
canceled?
So I think they
Oh,
did.
that was Rapid City.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. Whether it's just that opponent's canceled or the game completely. There's going to be so many changes in the next couple days. Let's check see if there's anything new. Yeah, so they posted the game's canceled against the Storm.
Okay. So that's their
So,
answer.
uh, but who knows? I
I
mean
don't
that
know.
that could change between now and then.
Sure.
Um, Actually, well, it has to be canceled against the Storm. The Storm are going to Albany. So
Who was Albany supposed to play?
Philadelphia,
Oh,
possibly.
Philly. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Is Yeah. So
Somehow that. Okay.
so that makes sense. Now, why they haven't put it? I worry that Rapid City is that ninth team. You're talking about 8 and 9, or no, sorry, 9 and 10, possibly not making it. I worry that
Yeah.
that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
I hope not. Yeah, because like I
I
said, I
hope
like
not
what they're
either.
doing up
But
there.
mhm.
But actually, man, I we don't. That's the problem. The schedules change so much; it's hard to keep up with what's going on. I'm
Yeah,
looking
I'm
at
just gonna wait
Arena
till
Fan.
Thursday to update my
Yeah.
website with games. So
Well, I mean, looking
uh,
at Arena Fan, they've got Rapid City at Washington, but that's definitely not
okay.
what was going to
Oh,
happen.
right.
So,
Sorry, I just
so
registered
yeah,
that.
at this
That's not
point,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So at this point, we're just going to have to figure it out. I mean, it's going to be week by week. Well, it won't even be week by week. I think this week's going to be a little chaotic, and by next week we'll have the schedule. That's kind of my prediction. That's not coming
Mhm.
off knowing anything. I think this week it's going to be kind of last minute. Okay, this team's going here, this team's going there, and then we'll have a schedule and know what's going on after that.
Correct.
um, let's say John, since like 2 of those 10 are on the bubble. Yeah. Now, what two of those are? We could take some guesses, but it's nothing more than a guess at this point. I mean, I think it's fair to say Rapid City is probably one of those 10, one of those two.
I
But
think Albany, Orlando, and Nashville are secured.
mhm.
Southwest sounds secured. Maybe Billings is secured. Just on the process of elimination. Could be
Mhm.
Washington. I don't know. I don't want to
Uh,
assume, but
yeah, I mean, if
definitely Rapid City, though. I think we can say that.
yeah, I mean, I'm fairly sure that's going to be at least the 10th team. Ninth, if I had to guess, and I know we got Greg in here with Wichita, I'd say it's either Wichita or Southwest Kansas. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
Washington, but something about Washington, they seem. I mean, all three of those franchises seem hell bent on staying. So,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
you know,
So that's
I
what I'm
hope
saying. I
hope they
don't
all
know for
do.
sure.
Yeah, I hope they all do because I mean, especially at Wichita, I'm only 3 hours from Wichita. That's a nice little drive. So,
I have not. I think the closest to me is still Albany.
Yeah,
That's a good 3 hour
because you're
drive.
Philly, right?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still not too bad. It's doable. Last Arena Bowl, I flew into Newark and drove up from there. So
Oh,
it
Newark
can be
Airport.
done.
I'm sorry to hear that. You might be entitled to compensation, actually.
I'll tell you what, that was hard. And so this is actually one of the topics I wanted to bring up is Arena Bowl. They said there's still a chance it would be a neutral site. Um,
It. I
it's
mean,
got to be Nashville, right? Like, if it's neutral
it,
site, it's got to be
I
Nashville.
I think it has to be Nashville. It only makes sense.
So because the
I
reason
think
I flew into
seeing that
Newark that
crowd.
year, mhm.
Hmm.
I said
What
the
are you
reason I
gonna
flew
say?
into
Sorry to
Newark
interrupt you.
is those. Oh, no problem. The reason I flew into Newark that year was because I didn't know where the game was going to be. It was going to be Atlantic City, whether it's going to be in Albany, whether it's going to be in Philly, so I'm like Newark. I can drive to everywhere except Cleveland from Newark. that that was the whole reason I did that, and sure enough, I ended up going to Albany. Um, so yeah, I'd rather not play that game again this year if I can avoid it.
Sure.
and
I think
and
Albany or Nashville. I
yeah,
think seeing the crowds for both of those games in early on in the season was promising. And that's the other thing, by the way.
Mhm.
I believe that was Albany. Yeah, that was supposed to be on NFL Network. The crowd was amazing. That was a great game with the
Mhm.
overtime and all. And it's a shame that has been forgotten about because of all that's happened.
Both of the Albany games that should have been on NFL Network. The first
Yep.
two were both great games, and such a missed opportunity. But again, flip side to that, especially in week two, there were some dog games that week. And I'm
Hmm.
so glad that the Orlando West Texas 0-6 at halftime was on not on NFL Network. You know, I mean,
Right.
there were some absolute dogs in week two, and I'm so glad that those weren't nationally showcased. You know, we had 4 games where a team didn't score 20 points in week two. Like
Wow.
that's not arena ball. You
No.
know, indoor football, it's not unreasonable, but arena ball,
Minimum
there's no
points.
excuse. Yeah, 28, I would say, is probably about the minimum. You know, one touchdown per quarter at least, right?
Sure.
So,
Right.
yeah, you know, it's kind of been a double edged sword with the NFL Network. I yes, we those first two Albany games were great and would have been phenomenal to have on TV. Some of these other games have not been good, and I'm kind of glad that it hasn't worked out. You know,
Yeah. I think Tim just said, imagine if Memphis Soul was on NFL Network. And I
yeah,
believe that game was the Dallas Falcons, if I'm not mistaken, that the Soul had the AAL2 team. I
you
believe
know,
that would have been
that's
something.
that's another one I still haven't gotten a true answer on. I mean, I
I'm sorry,
know,
they were in Louisiana.
yeah, they're in Louisiana, but from what I understood, it was about 80% of that original Soul team that came back to play the Myth. Now,
Hmm.
we haven't seen official stats. We don't know. You know, I went to the Southwest Kansas Iowa game, you know, where it was an unofficial Iowa team playing. Uh, they definitely did not have an updated roster because they were calling players' names over the PA system that weren't there. They're just going by the numbers on the jersey and the old. So I can assure you, Max Novak was not playing quarterback in that game that night. So, so you know,
Yeah.
so that's everything. I hope that's something that, yes, it's a small detail and ultimately doesn't mean that much, but man, I'd love to see him get these rosters and stats cleaned up.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
I think that's crucial. You know, when you start
I,
talking about the fans, yeah.
yeah, I think, and wasn't one game Darius Prince had what 5 or 6 touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, like got to put that out there. That's important. Important to
Yeah,
know.
and, and
That's
and
that's no small feat.
and I think they're not. I don't think Fisher's going to play around. He knows the base of what you need to have a professional organization. Um, you know, he's done it in multiple leagues. He's he's got the resume to make this work. So how quickly can he do it is ultimately going to be the question. And do I expect it this week? No, I expect this week to be adequate.
Mhm.
But next week, I'm hoping to see some major improvements.
I
You know,
think this week, yeah, they're just gonna let the teams play, and like from here on out, I think they're just gonna build on the week after. I think it's kind of a little too late to fix everything in time for this week's game. I think it'd just be better just let it play out and come back next week. Maybe there'll be some new TV partners. I know I forget his name. I think it's Chris. I hope I didn't get his name
mm-hmm,
wrong. That was in that
mm-hmm.
press conference. I know he said they got approached by some providers. So maybe something gets
Right.
announced. Maybe NFL Network changes their mind. Who knows?
Well, people say, "Oh, just go on, you just go on YouTube, just go on YouTube." YouTube's not that easy, especially when
Hmm.
you start talking about the game audio and all the music that gets played at every one of these games. You get copyright strikes like crazy. I streamed the the Iowa preseason game. I just stuck my no one else is doing it, so I just stuck my iPhone on a tripod and streamed the game. It took me 3 days to get all the music edited out to where YouTube would let me keep it
Oh
posted.
wow.
So YouTube is, yes, available to everybody, but it's not logistically. It's not that easy to use when it comes to these kind of things.
Hmm.
From what I understand, the IFL runs into that all the time. Of they have to edit out large portions of their games because it can't be saved because of the music playing in the background.
YouTube and Facebook does not play around with the copyright.
Mm-hmm. YouTube's even
Let's
worse
say
than
Tim.
Facebook. I'll tell you that
So
much.
Tim just said the same thing. They do not play around.
Yeah.
They shut it down quick. No
So,
warning.
and yeah, and if you get only approved songs and have that all done, then you're talking about just a sterile experience from arena to arena, and you don't want that either. So there's other options out there, and they'll find something. Um, let's see what we got here. So imagine Fisher in charge. He gets the ball rolling, improve the league. I wonder who he could attract to return to the AFL. Exactly, the guy's got connections. He's been in
Yeah.
this industry for a long time. Um, I don't see why the NFL Network won't play with him. I mean, yeah.
And you're talking about celebrity pool, right?
Mhm.
You're talking about a former NFL, like all of that. And I'm sure maybe that's in the works and we just don't know that yet. But it would make sense. And having Jeff Fisher on NFL Network and the sit down interviews, all of that, like, I could see it now.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's going to make sure that the word gets out that the league is back, that it's stable again. But he's not going to go out there tomorrow and say it. He's going to
Mm.
make sure it's stable before he goes out there and says, "Guys, we're officially back."
Right.
He's not going to sell this until it's ready to be sold. And when you start seeing Fisher out there, that means it's back. Like, again, he's just that old school guy. He's not going to tarnish his name. He's not going to put out
Right.
promises like some people have that are gonna come back to bite him. He's just not that kind of guy. He's going to cut it to you real straight.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I saw this floated on Facebook. I think it was Rush 43, old Chicago Rush fan. He
Okay.
suggested start the season this week or next week. Essentially, everything prior to now is all preseason. Start your schedule. Start your regular season schedule now. Run an 8 game season or whatever you've got, and then that's your regular season. And at first, I'm like, that's crazy. And the more I think about it, well, you got
I
6 teams that
mean,
aren't here anymore. You got a Philadelphia/Dallas team. Might not be the worst idea, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to rope in forfeits,
Mm-hmm.
cancellation, so it might as well. Like that's not a bad idea, and then you kind of just base your playoff standings off that. I don't know
Yeah,
if
and
it's fair to
start from
base your
scratch.
playoff
All
standings
your
off the early
Yeah, all
games.
your season stats are kept already because you've got all
Mhm.
that in line and ready to go. Yeah, like I said, I don't hate the idea. Like I said, my first thought was no, no, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. But these guys had to learn the game too. That's the other thing.
So, John's recent comment about responsibility of local team ownership group. Only reason I was looking at that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Diana, I think that's how you say her name. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me if I'm getting her name wrong. put out two separate statements. One was public, one was sent to players, but essentially saying that the negativity it came off that the negativity was the reason why the team folded and didn't get any
Hmm.
money. And I'm questioning all of that
I mean, it didn't
message.
help. I mean, anytime
Sure,
you
but
get that, oh well, man, I'm not going to invest with you because there's bad things being said on Facebook. Yeah, it's possible. Is that the reason
but
she didn't have any ads on the walls? Absolutely not.
I don't think that's the reason. Yeah, there's more to it. So yeah, I just didn't like the blame and like this is where you have to
Hmm.
take accountability, and that's what G6 did too. They apologized and they said sorry this happened. Yeah, we took the back seat. We should have done XYZ, and here's how we're gonna move on from here.
And they didn't need to apologize. That was the other thing kind of struck me. The first thing he
No,
did was apologize. It's like, and you had nothing to do with this at this point. You
mm-mm.
let these guys use your product and hoping they didn't screw it up, and they screwed it up. So,
Exactly.
I mean, he definitely did need to apologize. I appreciate that he did, but that's not
Yeah.
on him.
No,
You know.
I think because it's his trademarks. I think
Hmm.
you're right. He didn't have to, but I think also he's like at the end of the day, this is still my brand. This is my logo. So I'm just gonna apologize and just move on from that.
Hmm. But you know
And
what? Somebody apologized. It's the first time we've heard that
yes, oh
all
my
season
goodness, I didn't
long.
know that existed this league.
You know? Yeah. Take a look at it and ask why there
Tim's
might be a
right.
negativity and why the negativity is holding weight.
Exactly. It ain't the
Mhm.
negativity that is the reason why there was no
Yeah.
sponsors or funding.
And
Why
the
was the
reality
negativity?
is, if their job, if I say her, but she probably had people doing sales stuff for her, but if their job was done appropriately, those sponsors wouldn't have been issued. They had been secured before the negative stuff happened.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, yeah, yeah, he didn't have to apologize, but leadership, yeah,
Yep.
and
He's taken over. So and they led that charge into getting Fisher in. So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and Commissioner Hutton, I got to say this about him: he was very kind to me. The couple times I was able to talk to him, he was very approachable. But you know what? We saw where it ended up, and
Mhm.
my loyalties have always been to the game and to the Shield, not who's running it. Um,
Sure.
you know, I want to see the game survive.
All right. Yeah.
That's one
There's
for me. 1A is I
mhm.
want the players taken care of. You can't separate the two. After that, then it just comes to the overall quality of the league. I don't care what teams. I don't care what you know. I've been doing the Rampage thing all year. Well, guess what? I'm a Salina fan now. That's where I'm going. you know, I'll go down to Wichita and be a Wichita fan a couple times this year too. That's just how it's going to be. I'm a fan of the game, the sport, the Shield. I
Yeah.
don't care who runs it as long as they do a good job. I
That's
don't
it.
care who owns the teams as long as they're feeding the players and paying the players.
That's it. And
It's
yeah.
yeah, it's just been
It's
real simple.
at the end of the day, you have to think of it from a human aspect. When you have people saying they got to get kicked out of their hotels, they don't have
Mhm.
flights, they're not getting paid, they're not being fed, like all of that, like can't ignore that. And you can't expect to, that's why I hit the route that I did also with Arena Side is because it seemed like the AFL, at least publicly, were just pretending that this wasn't going on. And we're saying
Mhm.
more games, exciting games coming up this weekend. And I'm like, yo, like,
But who's paying
really?
them? you know,
Yeah. So it's like, it's crazy. So,
and also in some transparency. I don't want to get into too many details because I don't know the very specifics of it.
sure.
Um, but Philadelphia, for example, they talked about the condition of the hotel and where it was located. That there was hard drugs and prostitution all around the building. And again, I don't know the specifics on this, just generalities from what I've been told. The reason the hard drugs and prostitution were an issue is what do you think those guys were getting into?
Mm,
It's not always strictly on the league. Why did some of those guys get fired and not come back? there's sometimes a little more to it. Again, I don't want to call any individual out. I don't know any specifics. I just know in general it wasn't strictly that the building was in a bad place. It was in a bad place, and some people there were taking advantage of it being in that bad place.
Hmm.
you
Right.
know, Things do go both ways. Same thing like with the Iowa thing. Yes, the league did those things the owner said, but the owner also had his part of it too. It's there's always they say it's three sides to every story, right? The two combating sides and then the truth. There's three sides every, and that's kind of what you're running into. I will support the players. Again, I want them taken care of, but I also want them acting professional. That is
Right.
just as important. Especially in this league where they're paying, at least should have been paying, four times what the nearest league's being paid. You need to expect more out of your players. I don't know what the new salary is going to be for this league. Hopefully, they can keep the same. I have my doubts whether they're going to be able to do that, but hopefully, we find out soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And to also address those players that didn't get, the teams that shut down. I think that's something that I hope that gets addressed very soon.
I've back in the day, I fought with the head of the players union. Um, via social media back when there was a major turnaround going. Was it 2012? I
Hmm.
butted heads with him. Not because I don't think the players need a union. Clearly they do, given what we've seen this year. The players do need a union, but only to the point where the league can still survive. If the union has so much power that it kills the league, it defeats the purpose of having the union. So there's got to be a nice balance there between the two. Um, you need to. Yeah, I want the players taken care of, and that will always be important to me. But there's got to be, like I said, equilibrium. It's kind of, you
Right.
know I don't know quite how else to really say that. But the league needs to survive for these guys to have somewhere to go. Otherwise, they're back in the IFL for $250 a week,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they're worth more than that. That's just all it comes down to. They're definitely worth more
Hmm.
than that.
Yeah. Is that how
So
much IFL gets? Two? I didn't know that they get 250.
last I heard, and those numbers change frequently, but last I heard it was 200, 250 with a win.
Hmm.
So, and then there's lots of ways to get more money besides that, but that was kind of the base salary structure.
Oh wow.
So I mean, yeah. So you're talking what the AFL was offering and may still be, it's 4 to 5 times what you're getting offered in the IFL. And if you consider this a full time job, you break $200 up over 40 hours a week. That's not good money. That's not even minimum
Yeah.
wage.
Right.
If you
But
consider this,
essentially, it's supposed to be like, at least for some people that are playing, to this is just a stepping stone to help me get to
right?
the big money. So yeah.
And a lot of those guys that have been there for years and years and years, those are the ones that found the tall tables with the extra cash underneath it too. So, there's
Sure.
always ways around that stuff.
Mm. Right.
So this is kind of what I was talking about. The AFL 2.0 was plagued by players union ran by Soto, and
Hmm.
and yes, I agree with that statement, but maybe not quite as harsh now as I once did. Um, that, that
There
definitely
was
did put a big wrench in everything.
wasn't there lawsuits? Wasn't there lawsuits that involved the players union or something like that?
Oh, there's
I wasn't
always.
too deep into the league with back then than like I
Mhm.
am now, but
Mhm.
so
Yeah, there
what
there were
happened with
always
that?
lots of lawsuits, but like 2012, they had player that was you hear about the Olive Garden game where they fired all the players of the Olive Garden and didn't give them a ride home. Uh,
Oh, that-
yeah, it's not that different than what's happened this year with Philadelphia. It's it's unfortunate. It's part of this game. All these things that we're seeing this year. People say, "Oh, well, this never would have happened in the old AFL." It has happened in the old AFL. Oh, they need to go back to when it was great back in 2008. 2008, the budgets were so overinflated, the value of the teams were so overinflated by David Baker that when that bubble burst and they realized, oh, my team's not worth 20 to 50 million like he said it was, then the whole league went away. You know,
Yeah, wasn't that the lockout year?
that was, yeah, 2008 was the last year, and then 2009 they temporarily folded before the AF2 guys brought it back in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, IFL still pays with it. AIFA did in 2010. Yeah, IFL hasn't raised their pay as far as I know in quite some time. And
Mm.
man, you can't tell me the Arizona Rattlers don't have an extra 50 grand to throw up at player salary.
No, they do. Yeah.
I mean, most of those IFL friends, if they are as stable as everybody claims, then they've got the extra money that they could be upping the player salary in the IFL. Because those IFL players are good players. They're good athletes. And again, they deserve more than 200, 250 a week. I mean, yeah, room and board, all that, it does mean something. But man, you got to be able to afford your insurance on your car, your gas, your just your
Families.
basic bills, your cell
Yeah.
phone. Yeah, family. Like most of these guys have families.
Exactly. Yeah. Got to
You
think
know,
about that.
so and they're giving up a lot to come play for your franchise.
Hmm.
You
And
know,
travel.
it's
A lot of people out of town too. That was the big
mhm,
issue with Georgia. People traveled to Georgia to play for them. They didn't
exactly.
anticipate getting on a flight right back without any money.
So there's definitely, yeah, student loans. We know that's a big one
Yeah, very much.
because, yeah, all these guys aren't necessarily D1, full ride guys coming
Hmm.
out there. Good thing is, hey, when you only get $200 a week, you don't make enough for them to start taking student loan payments from you. So, but anyhow, what we know of this week, what we know of game wise this week, Southwest Kansas Storm at Albany. What are you thinking about that game?
uh, I'm gonna be honest. I need to do my research on a lot of these teams. I feel like I've been very clouded by everything going down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, from what it seemed like, that could actually, from looking at the previous games both of these teams played, that seemed like that could be a tight, could be another overtime game. Both teams are strong from what I'm seeing so far this season.
It's
Southwest,
very different styles for sure. And if they're playing
yeah,
at Albany with the non-crappy footballs, the ones that can actually be kicked for
yeah. What's
distance.
going on with that? Actually, I've seen different footballs. That's something else that's I haven't even realized that.
Yeah, so Albany essentially called out the league on this, and the composite balls the league got set up, they're soft, they're squishy,
Hmm.
and the first 2 weeks it was, man, special teams suck. No one's kicking into the net. There's no deuces. Are these kickers all crap? It's essentially what it was coming down to. And turns out no, it was the ball, because they switch out the ball in Albany, and all of a sudden they're bouncing off the net, bar balls, deuces, all the action we expect to see, because the ball's not a sponge now. So yeah, kid could hardly hit
Yeah.
the net, and yeah, and most of the time they weren't. And what was happening is, yeah, they're great returns, but man, I don't want to see every drive start at midfield.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so it just is a soft, squishy ball, and it just didn't work for special teams. And I'd even be okay if they only used balls for special teams and use a different one for the play. If they really want to stick with these balls, which I don't think they do, um, fine, do that. Do the kicking ball like they do in the NFL. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Southwest Kansas has that kind of special teams. We haven't been able to see that out of them yet. We know Albany
Yeah.
does. Um, the Wichita Nashville. I didn't expect much out of that one until the results from this week. That
Yeah.
Salina beat up on Nashville. Wichita not beats up, but comes back on Southwest Kansas. Man, all of a sudden that game's looking like a good game. That Wichita Nashville game's looking like a very solid game.
Well, the first game, I'm gonna make my picks right here
Mhm.
on
Oh yeah, go
the
for it.
show with you. So what was the first game again?
All right,
Now,
let's
mind
just
you, all
run it
these
down.
teams I've seen, but I haven't dove much into it, so I'm just gonna pick based off of vibes. I'm gonna say that. So
Well,
what's the
and I and
first one?
I'm I hate to do this, but I'm going off of what I'm seeing on Arena Fan, so I'm hoping this is accurate because again,
Uh,
things are changing right now. So,
It's
all right,
Wichita's
Orlando
playing
at
it.
West
Oh no, it's
Texas.
on. Okay.
So let's start. Yeah, start on Thursday. Orlando at West Texas.
Um, so I'm looking on the AFL.com. They have, let's say, 2, 4, 6, 8. Looks like they're missing 2 teams. Oh, well, that game canceled. So there's
Yeah,
what, 4 games this weekend, right? Okay, so on the
yeah.
AFL.com, for anyone watching,
Hmm.
they do have the updated schedule. Although they got Oregon and Washington, but clearly that's
Yeah,
not
it's not
happening.
totally updated, but it's close.
But okay, yeah. So okay, all right. But say that again. We'll pick.
All right, so yeah, Thursday we got Orlando at West Texas.
Going with West Texas.
West Texas. Man, they just played in a stinker, you know, and West Texas came out on top on that one. Orlando has had a week off. Yeah, I still got to go West Texas. I think Siegfried's
Okay.
got something good going there, even though they didn't show it last time these two teams met. So
All right, so we're both picking West Texas. I'm
you
keeping
got to go
track, and
West
I'm post this
Texas.
on Twitter later
There we
or
go. There
X.
we
I
go.
guess that's what we're calling it. But
All right, and then we got Wichita at Nashville.
mm,
Wichita's coming off that
Nashville.
win against Southwest Kansas, and Nashville's coming off a brutal loss to Salina.
I'm gonna go with Nashville. I think they're fired up about their guy Fisher, so I think they're gonna want to win for him. And is Nashville home?
It's at Nashville, yeah. It's at
Yeah,
Nashville.
Nashville got that one.
I, my head says Nashville. Just straight up, my
Hmm.
head says Nashville. But I'm also a sucker for the underdog. So, and seeing seeing that comeback win in Wichita, and them apparently being just really excited to be going to Nashville, from what it sounds like. I'm gonna just take a flyer and go Wichita on this one because
Wichita. Uh-oh.
crazier things have happened this year, clearly.
Sure.
So
Crazy things happen. What do you mean by that?
yeah, and then Rapid City at Southwest Kansas isn't happening. I see what Rapid City at Washington listed on here. Um,
It would be
I don't
Salina and
know.
Billings.
Yes, Line and Billings would be the next one. I don't know. I don't know who Rapid City is actually supposed to be paired up against this week. Is basically what it comes down to.
They were the canceled game. They
Right,
canceled their game against.
because their opponent's going to Albany. Arena Fan has them at Washington. So, but either
And
way,
the
they're
AFL also has Oregon and Washington.
Oregon and Washington, not Rapid City. So
Hey,
yeah, so
we'll
we're just
give
going
them
to
a
kind
pass
of
this week.
yeah. So, but we do
We'll
know
read it.
Salina at Billings is happening.
Okay. Uh, hmm.
Again, Salina's coming off that big win.
One of what Billings are still undefeated, right? And Salina.
They're both undefeated.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's
okay,
going to be a good
okay.
game.
I tell you what, we'll go with Salina. No, I'm gonna go with Billings on that one.
Billings. Yeah, again, you can't count out the Seds. You know,
Oh,
Billings has got that coaching staff. I think Salina's going to run into a more traditional AFL team in Billings, and I think
mhm.
they're going to struggle a little bit with that. So yeah, I got to go Billings there.
I think I picked all home teams, right? West Texas, Billings, and Nashville.
Yep, yep.
All right, that's gonna
And
happen.
then
3-0 Arena inside
and then well,
Stampede.
then we got the last one,
Oh,
Storm at the Firebirds.
hmm. I might break that streak at home one. I'm gonna go Southwest Kansas. Going with Southwest Kansas.
They're going to be mad about that loss. I know they're going to be mad about that loss, but Albany's good. I mean, Darius Prince. I don't know that the Storm have an answer for somebody like that. So I got to roll with the home team on that one. I go Albany.
Albany.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got it all written down, I think.
All right.
So you got
I don't have
Texas,
confidence at Wichita, but I
no.
don't have confidence in that one. But I don't know. That's an emotional
Hey,
pick.
is it your final answer, Mr.
Oh yeah,
Stamp?
I'm sticking with those, but
Stamped.
can't.
I wrote it down. It's in the books. It's in Vegas knows already.
There we go. So there are some good potential matchups. That Orlando West Texas Part Two, that has the makings of a potentially great game,
Hmm.
as long as it's better than the last one. You know, um, that the Salina Billings, that has makings of a killer game. I'm really excited to see that one, and even
I
the Storm and Firebirds. I mean,
hmm I want to highlight. I know he messaged a couple of times. I've seen him
yeah,
message Danny about. I know he's big on Oregon.
hmm
I want to try to talk to everybody. Um, yeah, I think we kind of touched on Oregon a little bit. He might have just joined, but I don't think Oregon's ready right now. I know we talked about that earlier. Don't want but
yeah. And I was looking for his message that he talked about that. It's true. I like what Oregon's putting together. I like Coach. I respect Coach. I feel bad that someone from the league came to him and said, "Hey, this all looks good. You're good to go. This is all safe." They're not ready. I
yeah,
really, really hope. I don't care if they stay in the building. I don't care about the low ceilings. That's just every arena is a little bit different. Here in Kansas City, only had the Brigade, and they played at Kemper Arena. The kicker had to put the ball basically on the wall to do his kickoffs because a big giant scoreboard hung down in the middle, and the only way he's getting around is if he skirts around the side of it. Every building's got its hazards, so I don't care about the
hmm
low ceiling. I can deal with that. The walls are unacceptable. That's
yeah,
just all it really comes down to. The walls are unacceptable. They're not safe. It, fix that. Fix that and come back, please. Like
yeah,
they, I like their branding. Like I said, I like their coach. The turf itself is nice,
yeah.
but man, yeah, it's just not safe.
Hmm.
So yeah, wish they could take Oregon's team, put it in Washington's arena.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Oregon has a good thing, and I definitely don't want to discount them, and I want to see them back. Same thing with the Voodoo. I might be in the minority. I love this new Voodoo logo. Like I've got
mm,
my old Voodoo helmet back here, and that's a
yeah,
classic.
yeah. Let's see that. Wait, can you bring that in
But
frame? Because I
yeah,
remember the New Orleans voodoo. That's the OG logo.
hang on a
I
second.
mean, I like this new one too, but that's something special about that one.
Get back to where I can hear you here. But yeah, I mean, I love this logo. I love this old team.
Yeah. Hmm.
You know, it's a classic.
Yeah.
But man, that new one is sharp. So many colors to it. There's so many things you can do with that logo. Like,
I'm looking at it now. Who's your favorite logo out of all the teams?
oh, out of all the teams, out of the new logos, hmm,
It's
I
I think I got one based off of how they put it out there.
I was very partial to Iowa. I like the gorilla, I like the video game influence from the Rampage video game. But since they're out of the picture, that Albany Firebirds logo is just it's just cool.
You know what I think is slept on? I like the Wolfpack logo, especially how it looks on the helmet.
Oh yeah, those helmets are
Yeah,
slick. I'm
yeah.
not a big
Whoever
fan of
designed
the
that, shout out to them.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 1994 color scheme, but
No,
it looks like
you
those
don't
old
like that.
cups, those old Dixie cups, But it's just hard to work with in terms of color schemes. But
Hmm.
no, those helmets are sick. Actually, that's kind of what I expected out of the Voodoo this year. I expected to kind of see that headdress going over the top of the helmets.
Yeah,
I was a little
I like
disappointed
the
when that didn't
Blackbears
happen.
logo too.
Hmm
They got a
Yeah,
good
especially
logo.
get that when they have that gold background behind it, it looks real sharp. Um, but yeah, people are hating on that Voodoo logo. I like it. I think it's a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it's cool.
But yeah, I mean, again, this is the classic. This will be what everybody will always remember the Voodoo.
Yeah, yeah,
But man, that new one works. If it wasn't for this one, there's no reason to hate the new one. It's just a bias from what
first
exists.
when up when watching Philadelphia Soul as a fan as a kid. That was the one. That was the first game I went to, and when the
Okay,
Voodoo came to Philly, so that's how I always remember them. The new, yeah,
so your league went cheap on our logo decals. Be the full front. Yeah, and that would have looked slick. That would
Hmm.
look real slick, especially if you got if oh man, if you want to make that complete and you get the visor with the skull and the
That'd be
feathers going
crazy.
across. Oh, that would be
That'd be crazy.
sick. You
I can see
know,
that.
there's a
We
lot
might
of
have
potential
something
there.
going on. We might just have to design it. Well, like that.
I've been working on a team for here in Kansas City that
Uh-oh.
I'll keep it quiet for now, but man,
Breaking news.
if I
I
could
got it
ever
out
make
of
it
them.
happen, it's gonna hit. If I can ever help make this happen, it's gonna hit and it's gonna be big, at least locally. Anyway, it'll be
Hmm.
real big. But
Okay. Okay.
we got to get there first. We got to get all the right people involved first. But I don't know. For the first time in since the season started, I feel good.
Yeah.
Like I felt like crap the last month. You know? Every day being a little more disappointed in this, a little more disappointed in that. But man, I feel hopeful for the first time this regular season.
Yeah.
So
I did too, and especially after everything that just went down, and I'm hoping that things turn a corner. I think
mhm,
it had to start with some change. And I know a lot of people don't like change, especially this early, and
mhm.
especially on a relaunch like this. But they had to do something, or the league was just going to fold in a matter of weeks. That it was the clock was ticking for sure.
Oh yeah, well, I am disappointed. My goal for this season was start with 16 teams, end with 16 teams. Clearly, that's not going to happen. So I think they can still redeem themselves if they can knock it out of the park these last 6 7 weeks, however long they decide to stretch out this season. And you know what? I can give it a passing grade by the end of the year. I mean, if it were end today, no, they messed it up too much. But like prior to this Fisher announcement, I had this league no higher than a D. Now with the Fisher
Yeah.
announcement, all right, let's see what you got. At this point, the league just needs to prove itself, prove it's legitimate. So
Yep.
that's kind of all they can do at this point. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it could get any worse, right? Knock wood.
hey,
Wood, but
hey, they just stopped playing, but honestly, that would have been a relief 2 weeks ago. So,
yeah. Yeah.
so
So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm hopeful also because I don't want to keep doing hearing more players talk about the same thing and coaches saying like, it shouldn't be that way.
right.
So and now it's picked up nationally. That's the other thing we didn't talk about. Pat McAfee. When I saw hit Pat McAfee show, I said, "Oh no, they got to do something."
Mm-hmm. It's Pat McAfee. If the guy's not being a douche about one thing, he's gonna be a douche about something else. I mean,
And Mike Florio is a whole nother discussion for another day.
I mean, some of these guys, that's what they make their living on is just crapping on things and getting clicks. And but again, he wasn't wrong.
No,
So I mean, you can't really be mad at the guy. He was just telling the truth. That teams were fired. They picked a replacement team, and all hell's breaking loose. I mean, yeah, that's that's what was happening.
hmm
So, but no, like I say, I hate to say, I'm just not his biggest. I'm not a big fan of him. I never got the appeal, but I know he's got a following, so it matters. But yes, it was not for not for good things. But the AFL's been in the news every week for the
yeah,
last 3 4 5 weeks. So even if it's not pretty, people are talking about us. You know what? You know what? I never hear these guys talk about any of the other leagues that are out there, good, bad, or otherwise. And this was Antonio Brown.
oh
That's not the
no,
only time that
oh
got any
no.
attention. But it's because of
Right.
Antonio Brown that got attention. Uh,
Hmm.
so again, it just reinforces this name matters. This shield matters. Now it's time to put the respect back into it.
Yep.
So
And Fisher said that those exact same words.
yeah. So All right. I don't know if this is actually like somebody knows if this is like an account that maybe I'm just out of touch, but man, urinating tree.
Someone tagged me in that, and listen, I was half awake when I saw that username. I said, "What is someone?" I thought someone's telling me to urinate on a tree. I was like, "What?" I was about to fire back and all until I saw who the account was, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right."
If that's a legitimate big time, news breaking person, man, I had no clue, but that's a name right there.
I know
I
nothing,
saw,
so
I saw that one come up and just like, what? Like, how old am I?
I know nothing about that. But apparently, they got it. He has a big following, so
So, but yeah, he got right in deep with it. All of a sudden, I'm seeing urinating tree this, urinating tree that. I'm like, okay, So there you go. Steelers fans makes comedy essays on sports. So it's kind
gotcha.
of like a Pittsburgh
Noted.
Onion or something. So
Noted. That's all that goes on in Pittsburgh. Sorry,
right.
Pittsburgh, if you're watching out there, but not sorry at the same time.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. What do you have going on? I know, and like I said, you've been breaking news left and right, lots of interviews with some big time people lately. What have you got coming up? Anything on the table?
Right now I'm still I was actually while we were talking, I was just messaging a player about a interview as well. I'm trying to schedule that. But everything kind of happened with the press conference.
Right.
But yeah, still working on a documentary about everything that's going on, even though it's in a new era, I guess, 3.5. Yeah, if anyone out there is watching, if you have any clips of games you went to or meeting players, any type of arena football league related content from this year, preferably, yeah, feel free to send that my way and I'll give you credit, of course. But yeah, just working on that, and I've done a couple of interviews that I haven't released yet, kind of just holding those in the vault for right now. And over time, I'm going to release some clips and also scheduling other interviews. And so um, we'll see. That's what's going on right now. And after this press conference, I'll have a write up about what they were talking about into this press conference and kind of giving people a recap that didn't watch. So I'll get that going at some point soon.
And I think we got a couple hundred people following us. Like it's almost right down the middle between people on the fan zone pages and the people on the Arena Insiders. But where can they find you? I've had my stuff scrolling along the bottom all night. So
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, you can follow me, A Carter underscore TV, at Arena Insider on all platforms. I do want to say this too, by the way. Speaking of Arena Insider, I do want to thank everyone that has supported Arena Insider and a YouTube and a website. I look at the stats every day. I'm a numbers guy, and it's just been crazy the amount of subscribers and views it's got. So I do appreciate that. Being this is independent. I'm doing all this on my lunch break from work and late at night overnight. So it does mean a lot, and just trying to do the best I can. I do appreciate everyone for tuning in, and appreciate you also, Scott, for bringing me on and supporting and all the other blogs out there also doing their thing. Just the name Arena Fan, Rebound Off the Net, um,
Shady Sports.
Scott, Shady Sports, Luke Miller, got to shout him out. My guy
A lot of guys doing some
Javon.
good stuff. A lot of guys doing some good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. So yeah, so it's all a collective effort. So I do appreciate that.
So yeah, no, like I said, I appreciate you getting those voices out there. I mean, it's I don't think people realize what a fine line it is to tread sometimes talking to some of these folks, and when you do talk to these things, you get to know versus what you're allowed to say, and to be able to get the powers that be to come on and actually say the things that you're not allowed to say just on your own.
Hmm.
It means a lot. It means a whole lot.
Yeah,
It
and
validates a lot of people.
yeah, and it's important. People want to know what's going on. People that buy tickets want to know what's going on. And there's a lot of stuff that I did learn, that I did find out, but because we got to be fair legally, I can't even
Mhm.
say. right?
Right.
So, I do have to be fair to the Arena Football League and Hutton to give his side of things. But it's tough. But Peep fans have been sending me story pitches and other journalists, and I'm like, oh wow. And, so
Mhm.
it's truly a collective effort, and just goes to show you local journalism is important. Independent journalism is important. We need it. If there wasn't for these stories or interviews that got out, this probably would have been going on for weeks,
Just
just
would have
being
been swept under
honest.
the rug, swept under the rug, and
Yeah.
it would have maybe finished the season with just a crawl.
Yeah.
Now I feel like
Nobody
we,
probably
we
would have
got a
never
chance to get
even
some
known.
momentum. Hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like we got a little chance to get some momentum right now, and I do believe we got the right people in charge to make a difference. I really
I think
honestly
so.
do, and I don't think that's just wishful thinking,
Hmm.
because I know there's a lot of that up in there with me too. But I really don't think it is. I think we got the right folks that genuinely care,
Hmm.
which is why we had Ron James on here last week. Was somebody who genuinely cares about the game, even though he's not involved with it now. Somebody who genuinely cares about the game.
Shout
So,
out Ron James. Great
yep,
great guy.
absolutely love him to death. Um, but anyhow, like I said, we've been going on this for a while. I appreciate you so much for coming on. Like I said, y'all see my stuff scrolling along the bottom of the entire stream. You know where to catch me. That little QR code on the top corner there. If you all have a smartwatch, I've been setting up these little design faces for your smartwatch. You can sync whatever team or the league logo or whatever on there. It's
Oh
totally
wow.
free. I get nothing out of it. It's just something I just kind of put together. If you got
That's
something you want
cool.
to see, something different, just holler at me. I'll try to get something put together. Um,
Cool.
just one more way to kind of promote your team, promote the league. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I
I'm
think
all
I
for
think we
that.
gotta do this again, Scott. This was good. I think a lot of people really tuned in, at least from the comments I've seen.
hundred
Plus,
percent.
we got
Yeah.
to revisit our picks, because I
Yep.
think I'm going to sweep this week, but that's just me. But
Nice. I got that one. I'm not 100% confident in, but
I don't even know much about these teams. I just went off of off of energy. All home teams except for one.
yeah. It's honestly not bad. I can't argue your picks. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Oh yeah, we definitely need to do this again. I think we are kicking around the idea of potential roundtable with all the different sites sometime soon.
Let's do it.
So I
I'm
think
with
we
it.
would. Yeah, I'm not. I can't solely extend that olive branch to you, but I think it's probably coming your way.
Mhm.
So
I'm in. I'm into it.
um, but yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for joining. Yeah, we'll definitely do this again. I'll be back next week. CWise should be with me, and we're working on lining up another couple guests. So yeah, stay tuned, keep an eye out, and we'll be back next week. Thank you all for coming.
All right. Peace.